everybody, it's Tara Boothby from Sojourn, and I am doing a little series called my Cozy Sweater series, which will be 3 parts. Part 1, why do I make bad decisions? Part 2, how do I make good decisions? And Part 3, grace for self and self-forgiveness. So very relevant always, but in particular right now during all of the craziness that we're going through. And many of us are struggling to figure out how to decide things that might have been more easy or seemingly easy in the past now become quite difficult. And we find ourselves in ruts, making bad decisions, eating the wrong food, drinking too much alcohol, spending money on things we normally wouldn't, fearing things we normally wouldn't, all sorts of different ruminating thoughts, poor habits with sleep, many things that we're having a hard time managing our behavior, our thoughts, and our decisions for. So something that's well known about me is that I am a psychologist, but I'm also a student of theology. And one of the best pieces of information that I have read about the progression of decisions actually is from the Bible, in the book of James, chapter 1, verses 12 through 15, if you're interested. And basically, when we look at why we make bad decisions, number one, and this makes sense from a psychology standpoint as well, is we have these desires in our brain. We have thoughts that we're toying with, a desire that we're not really keeping in check, we're not being mindful of, or taking captive of. We're just toying with this desire, whether it's for food, or sex, alcohol, material items, or even fear or looming, dooming, anything like that. Just something that we keep in the background. And as that desire sits there, it's something that we can touch back on. We're enticed by it. I just kind of notice it, I'm enticed, I'm curious, and as I am enticed, I become more touching on it every once in a while, and it becomes more of this possibility. Now, when that desire and that enticement add up, it can lead us into a space where we start to become isolated with this thought, this feeling, this want. And in that isolation, that's when bad decisions can happen. I'm sitting with this bad decision. Do I eat a whole bag of chips? Do I do a bunch of online shopping? Do I look at pornography? Do I overconsume social media news about the American election or vaccines, any sort of conspiracy theory? So in that isolation, when I'm toying with that desire and that enticement, I can lead myself to make a bad decision, which can lead to a bad behavior, poor behavior choice. And as I start to slip into that negative decision, the desire, the enticement, the behavior, it starts to create it as more of an option. There's a neural pathway that starts to get stronger. What once was a possibility becomes more and more of a likelihood. It becomes more and more hardwired into my brain, actually, is what starts to happen. And as I continue in that isolation, giving into the enticement and the desire, the bad decision becomes more and more of an option, and that destructive pattern is more formally established. And now this probably makes sense for a lot of us right now, because in our trauma response, unfortunately, at this stage of the game, months into the pandemic, we are in some negative habits and patterns of behavior. So we'll continue on in this Cozy Sweater series talking about how to make good decisions in the next installment. But this is really just to make sense of, like, this is how it happens. So one of the things that we can do is when we notice desire, or we notice those sort of things that it's like, ooh, that's not my normal. It's like, how do I start to prevent or put up roadblocks when I notice the desire? Because once we get into the cycle of that negative behavior, it's much harder to stop it. Not impossible, but much harder. All right, you guys, see you in the next one. Stay cozy.